Exchange rates have always been confusing. As a Canadian resident, I can assure you that there are few things more frustrating than going online to buy something and discovering that, because it's in American dollars, it actually costs anywhere from 20 to 50% more than I was expecting. But the most confusing exchange rate has to be from equestrian bits to real-world dollars. Most likely it's confusing because Equestria doesn't exist, and thus no official exchange rate has been set in place by the government, but since when has the world being fictional ever stopped us before? Today we're going to figure out the comparison between equestrian bits and United States dollars. Just, in case you didn't read the title, I figured I'd say it again. Roll the intro. Now, this isn't exactly the simplest thing in the world to determine. Most people may start by trying to judge how much a bit-sized amount of gold would go for, but we don't really have proof those bits are made of gold, and it's pretty unlikely they are, to be honest. Gold may look pretty, but it's also pretty dang heavy in large amounts, not to mention we're not even entirely sure gold is common in Equestria. Granted, gemstones are, but point stands. So just to be on the safe side, we're going to try a more roundabout route in figuring this out. What we need to do is find a reliable point of the show where bits are used to purchase something and compare that to its real-world cost. But we have to be careful here. Notice how I said reliable. There are plenty of times where the cost is clearly or possibly incorrect. For example, in Call of the Cutie, Apple Bloom claims that a big bag full of apples is only 4 bits, yet a single apple fritter in the best night ever costs half that. But already, we're on the right track. Most shop owners and merchants will give their items a price markup to try and increase their profits as much as possible while compensating for the cost of ordering, materials, shipping, etc. Whether this is due to supply and demand or just wanting more money, either way it makes it difficult to use their prices as accurate information. But Applejack, being the element of honesty, would probably have the smallest markup, and that isn't just a random assumption based on something that hasn't been relevant since Season 3. If you recall, the Apple family doesn't charge more for apple cider as they run out in Super Speedy Squeezy Cider the cider one with the Flim Flam brothers. Even though most people would raise their prices once they see how literally the entire town is lining up at their stall, and they know they can't provide enough. Instead, each mug stays at 2 bits per. Now, most people's assumption here would just be to look up the cost of a mug of apple cider at their local bar and say that whatever the price is would be equivalent to 2 bits. But while that probably wouldn't be too far off, we want to get more accurate. Plus, there's still another few minutes in this episode to fill out. So from here, it's time to dive into just how much cider is in a mug this episode. First off, we need something to compare the mugs to, and the easiest thing is, well, a pony. The height of ponies is pretty hard to nail down since most canon references to height are fallible in some way, but a generally reliable one is the method I used way back in the apple bucking episode. Even if I got a lot of other things wrong in that, the height of ponies, I was almost accurate on. With some adjustments to my original formula, here's the short version. Estimated 8-foot candy cane compared to Scootaloo, who has an almost worryingly long tongue I just want to make quick note of. Is she related to Yoshi's? And then compare her to adult ponies, specifically the main 6, in other scenes. In the end, it could be safely determined that most adult mares, or at least the main 6, are about 3.5 to 4 feet tall from hoof to head. Look, if you want me to find anything more exact than that, you gotta wait for a whole new episode on that topic, but this'll work. Now we examine the cider mugs and compare them to Applejack's height, assuming for simplicity's sake that it's 4 feet. Trust me, assumptions are not gonna screw us over in this. Examining various scenes and making sure to factor out the steel bottom and the foaming top, if we assume the cider goes roughly to the top of the mug, that is 9.78 inches high with an average of 8.64 inches in diameter. Some fancy work with a calculator or two, and this comes out to 730.07 cubic inches, or 11.96 liters. That is a lot of cider. For comparison, average water bottles come out to half a liter, or in some cases, 1 full liter. So if you have a water bottle lying around, just imagine 24 of those. That's how much cider these ponies are drinking for 2 bits. And for the record, I swear I didn't do any of this math wrong. Believe me, that number made me incredulous too. But I double-checked it, triple-checked it, redid it from scratch, tried assuming the pony's heights were other things, 3.5 feet, 4.5 feet, 3 feet. In the end, it still comes out to a frankly absurd number. If you're still calling foul, bear in mind that their mugs are about 1/4 to 1/3 as tall as the ponies themselves are. Imagine if you went to the bar and had a drink from a 2 or 3 foot tall mug. Oh right, those are called kegs. Anyway, now that we know each mug contains roughly 12 liters of cider, or 3.16 gallons, dear Celestia, no wonder they always run out so fast, we now need to determine the cost of the same amount of cider in real-world dollars. Unfortunately, most places that sell cider tend to give it a rather steep markup for profits, and we don't have magical elemental necklaces to tell us when some store owners are being more honest than others. As such, the best option is to just find the closest thing to Sweet Apple Acres cider distribution, apple cider being sold directly from the farm where it's made. I've spent quite some time looking around, in person and on the internet, googling for apple cider so often the government probably thinks I'm an alcoholic, and I've finally settled on an average. With slight rounding, on average, 1 gallon of apple cider straight from the source goes for $10 US. At least this makes the calculations easy, 10 times 3.16, so for 1 mug of Equestrian cider you'd be shelling out $31.60. Which means, give or take slightly to account for markup on either side, 1 Equestrian bit is equivalent to, in US currency, $15.80. Oh yeah, this was about exchange rates, not just apple cider. Almost forgot about that along the way. Well, now if a portal to Equestria opens up and you've got vacation plans there, you'd better hope you've been saving your paychecks. You know, now it's really not that far-fetched for all those apples from Culla the Cutie to only cost 4 bits. But man, that apple fritter. AJ may have gone a little overboard on the markup there. No wonder she only got 2 customers. I'm the Science Pony, and now I'm really starting to wonder just how much they're ripping me off when they pay me for making this show. Please buy merchandise. It is the only way I can survive. See you guys next time.